everyone, Christie here, and today I'm excited because we're exploring pumpkins, one of my favorite fall fruits. And that's right, they're fruits, not vegetables. Pumpkins are a very common fall fruit, and we know they're a fruit because the seeds are found inside an edible, fleshy plant material, just like these pumpkins, or when you bite into an apple and you find seeds inside. Now, pumpkins come in many shapes and colors, like this great big orange one, this tiny little orange guy, and even green. There's lots of other colors and shapes too, and these are just a few that I have here with me today. So to get started, we're gonna look at the different parts of a pumpkin. Up at the top, this stem has a really funny name. It's actually called a peduncle, and it's the part of the fruit that was attached to the vine. Now at the bottom of the pumpkin, you see this flat sort of brown stump, and that's where the flower was. So on the vine, when this was growing in a garden, it would have been vine, the start of a fruit, and then the flower off of the end. So that spot is where a flower was. Another thing that's really noticeable about pumpkins is that they have these grooves in them. These grooves or creases are actually called ribs. Now these ribs are actually on the inside where the seeds grow from. So you can actually go around and count every single crease on a pumpkin and try and estimate how many seeds are inside your pumpkin. So I'm gonna take these two pumpkins here, and we're gonna count how many ribs are on each of them. So let's get started with this big orange one first. There's about 24 ribs on this big orange pumpkin. That's a lot of creases. Let's try this slightly smaller green pumpkin. I only count 10 ribs on this one. So if this pumpkin only has 10 ribs and this pumpkin has 24, which of the two do you think has more seeds? Well, I think it would be the bigger one because there's more ribs, which means there's more seeds growing along the inside of that pumpkin. Now you can see on this small one here, there are ribs, but they're much, much, much smoother. This is actually a pie pumpkin, and so it has a different texture than these other ones. Lots of pumpkins are edible. In fact, almost all pumpkins are edible, but some of them taste a little bit better than others. Something else that you can look for when you're exploring a pumpkin that you picked up from a pumpkin patch or a store is you can see if there's any signs of where the plant was growing. So we know about the peduncle, we know about where the flower came from, but is there any other marks or signs of things on the pumpkin? For instance, on this pumpkin here, there's a really flat side. You can see it's got some marks, some dirt stuck into it, and there's this really obvious crease going down it. Now, this pumpkin was probably growing on the ground like this. And you know that because it has a very obvious flat side that would have been right against the ground. Now this crease was probably because there was a vine growing under the pumpkin. And if there was a vine there, it would have left that crease. So not only was it flat, but there was a vine under it. Same with this pumpkin. If we spin it, we can see more evidence of vines that it was probably laying on at one point or another while it was growing in the farmer's field. Now, most pumpkins that we know of are pretty round. They're pretty perfectly round, but those flat sides are a really fun feature to try and look for when you're picking your perfect pumpkin. Now let's try an experiment. This pumpkin here is the biggest one I have, and it's heavy. This one here is a little bit smaller, but still pretty heavy. And this one here is the lightest of them all. Do you think pumpkins can float? Let's see. Let's try it ourselves. Now that we know that pumpkins are hollow and full of air, which helps to make them float, let's see if that air in the different sizes makes different sounds when we tap on them. Now this big one, let's try tapping it and listening to the sound it makes. Okay, pretty low. Let's try this one. It's a little bit higher. Let's try this really small one. Ready? That one's definitely higher. So it looks like the bigger pumpkins make a lower sound than small pumpkins. That's really neat. It probably has to do with the air on the inside. There's more air inside a bigger pumpkin, which would make this sound diffuse more. Whereas in a smaller pumpkin, there's less air and less room for the sound to go. Well, thank you for joining me today as we explored pumpkins, one of my favorite fall fruits. I hope you enjoyed, and be sure to check out rbg.ca/at-home for more information on pumpkins and all kinds of plants that surround us. Until next time, bye.